One of the challenges that we are having as we scale up is especially around our sales and expanding our sales and marketing, and which are in remote towns and cities. So my question is, while expanding, how do I keep costs under control and continue to expand my remote team, especially around sales and marketing?
Yeah, first of all, thanks Aditi for having me here, and great initiative. And thanks Yaikhomba for taking your time to be a part of this podcast and sharing your insights as well. So that's a great question. That's one of the key questions that many companies at the growth stage typically face. In your particular firm, Addble is basically into seller onboarding for especially for the ONDC to be a part of the ONDC network. So most of them will be located in you're talking about very small scale sellers who are located in remote parts of different parts of the country. So rather than having physical presence in terms of actual offices in these remote towns, you can follow a hub and spoke model, right? Where you have a typical city like you choose Bangalore as your core, and then you have a regional hub there. Then you have multiple different spokes, right? Where Mysuru is just 120 kilometers away, and you have Tambus, different areas that are Hassan, that are within a 100-kilometer radius. If you have a hub, then you actually expand in a spoke model. And then locally, instead of having full-time employees in these remote towns, you can have, freelancers and commission-based agents who are onboarding sellers. You're actually paying them based on the performance rather than a fixed salary. So one of the key bottlenecks for you guys is to increase the headcount drastically, because it will be very difficult to increase headcount in the initial stages. So a commission-based local sellers who are monitored by these hubs with regular visits from the hubs to these sellers can be an effective strategy, which is being followed by many companies. I mean, even some of the firms under Calcutta Innovation Park also follow the similar, hub and spoke kind of a model for seller expansion. The other option would be to even partner with local agents like MSMEs and local chambers of commerce who have already a lot of presence in these domains, and people trust, and sellers, small scale businesses trust these kind of local chambers of commerce. Partnering with them and getting entry into that market can also actually ease the seller onboarding process to a great extent. So you'll have to think strategically on how to deploy your limited resources in these hubs and get these other, local agents to work for you, and strategic partnerships with MSMEs. That's typically how I would look at it.
Yeah, and in addition, just wanted to add from a public policy perspective to leverage government schemes as well, utilizing programs like the PM Gati Shakti initiative, for example, or state level MSME support to access subsidies, incentives, as well as, say, shared infrastructure for your regional operations might be useful.
Right. So a much pressing challenge now is, as we grow, the number of activities that are being demanded from me as a founder or from my co-founder is increasing. And so it's like, we are being pulled into multiple sites, immediate, urgent demands, needs, and sometimes we are ourselves becoming the bottlenecks for our team to continue, execute. So how should we kind of, handle this situation?
Yeah. So that's also a very relevant and a very pertinent question. So typically the founder's time is kind of like a bottleneck, right? So you have limited resources and you're mostly absorbed in the day-to-day tasks. You have to firefight on a daily basis. You have to manage the day-to-day operations. So the key part is, can you set aside 40% of your time? Just as an example, 40% for strategy and growth. That's it. That's where you're going to focus on new initiatives. You're going to focus on growth. You're going to actually talk about extension, strategical decisions. So that 40% of time is going to be the key. If you're spending 80 to 90% of your time on day-to-day operations, then for the vision that you brought in when you started the company, the idea that you had for the long-term vision for the company, everything is kind of the back of your mind. It's not actually in execution trend. So rather than doing the day-to-day task right at the beginning of the day, I would rather focus on strategy and growth, right? Okay. Right in the beginning, right? So because a lot of paperwork will anyways come to your desk. A lot of paperwork will come. A lot of people asking for your time in terms of there are so many issues are happening. How do we resolve these issues? So it's very easy for us to get involved into those and then forget about our long-term vision, and then we kind of go on a narrow path. We are fighting fires on a daily basis. So rather, the 40% of your time spent on completely, let's say, strategy and growth. The other part is we have an interesting framework called Eisenhower framework, where we say it's based on importance and urgency. Like anything that's important and urgent, you take it up right away, you close it and you move on, right? Anything that is not important, but it's urgent, right? Make it, delegate and make it, if it's a repetitive task, just automate it, right? Rather than taking it on your desk. So the key part is to identify these categories of different tasks and then make sure that the people working with you completely know, right, what exactly you're going to react to. So one of the key things about being a startup founder is being predictable. People say unpredictable is good, but it's not really. So within an organization, being predictable is always good. So if your employees always know what exactly your response is going to be for a particular decision, then they can actually do the tasks on their own. So if you make it clear, this is a policy, this is a vision, This is how we are going to proceed. And if you are consistently taking those decisions towards that objective, your employees and the people working with you will kind of know already that this is how we are going to react to a particular situation. So let me go ahead and implement it. So you can kind of delegate and effectively move it up to different people. So being a predictable leader is one, setting aside clear policies, clear way that you're going to operate. This is a vision, that is how we're going to operate. And the other part is, setting aside time for strategy and growth. So this is typically, I would address this, it's a very common issue across all the companies that the founder has a lot of vision. They have a lot of ideas. They have a huge, ambition to take that to a greater extent. But because of lack of time, you're bogged down on the daily duty. So there is a delicate balance that you have to maintain anyway. Right.
From my end would be to think about creating an advisory board or expanding your public-private partnerships and networks so that you can engage domain experts and policymakers in certain cases for guidance on any regulatory matters, compliance-related issues, funding and scaling challenges, and so on.
This is my last important question that I wanted to ask. As we grow, which key roles should I consider on hiring? Which should I prioritize? What are the roles that I should be prioritizing?
So obviously, because you're a technology platform, you're actually offering ONDC API, I would definitely focus a lot more on platform roles, product and technology related roles. So you need to have, product management roles. You need to have CTO. If you're not already present, you need to have a chief technology officer. So your focus is one part of your hiring should be on the technology part because that is your core, that is your fundamental, right? On the other side, you need the sales and marketing team as well. So sales, so leveraging all these hub and spoke models and partnerships, is the sales and marketing team well equipped with handling all those, complexities when it comes to executing it on ground. So I would focus on these two. And third would be enhancing your, let's say, the process within the organization. So scaling up, the moment when we talk about scaling up and bringing in more people, if the processes are in place, then you can scale up a lot more. Right now, given you're at the startup stage, you have a lot more control over all the processes. The more and more people you bring in, more structured processes you build into the system, it's going to be much more easier to scale up. So one would be the technology and let's say the product related roles, product management roles. Other would be sales and marketing roles. As a founder, your job will be to bring in these people and get the processes set up so that when you're scaling up, you're going in a very controlled manner. The core value that you're delivering is not diluted in any manner. So one of the key things is when you expand and then because of that expansion, the core benefits, the core differentiating factor that you have, if they're diluted, it's going to be a negative point. So you need to expand without diluting that core value that you're offering right now. So if you expand and it increases your cost and then your pricing is changing, all of those is something that you'd want to, control right from the beginning. So I would look at these three aspects: sales and marketing roles, technology and product roles, and creating the process. As a founder, creating the processes in-house so that when you're scaling up and bringing more people, they know exactly where they fit in, what part of the process they fit in, and they're able to execute seamlessly.
And just to add to that, to navigate the ONDC integrations, policy incentives, and also to create strategic alliances, which I mentioned earlier, maybe you could consider a role for a head of partnerships and public sector relationships, given the kind of model you follow. So yeah, on that note, I hope this interaction was useful for you to address 3 key pressing issues in your growth process so far. And we wish you all the very best as you move forward.
Thank you so much. This has been very, very helpful. Thanks a lot. Thank you.